Okay, chat. Let's see that Krono video. What it is the whole we have lost the plot for NGS. What is Krono going on about? Let's figure this out, chat. Go to your yield, chat. Also, if you see this after found on YouTube, you'd like, favorite, subscribe, hit all the bells.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Krono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today I kind of wanted to have a bit of a dialogue with you guys, but I've done these dialogues before, and they're just kind of like me sitting somewhere and talking to you, and I feel like, yeah, I'd do a little bit extra. It might be the fact I haven't done my dailies yet today. It might be the fact I didn't really have a video idea and want to do something that I thought might be kind of cool to mix around with. So, and I feel like I've
not quite
been meaning to talk about this for
see
a while.
what Krono
Talk about
is
it
up
on
to.
stream, but I'd rather have it in video format. That way we can kind of look back on it later and not react to it, but see if my thoughts might have changed since this time frame. Well, so we were running our dailies essentially, and I'll be talking to you guys about a topic that I'm gonna kind of just rip the band-aid off on this one. PS2's gotten too easy. It substantially too easy. And let me
wait, it got too easy? NGS I feel have always been easy. Like, other than like the 3 to 4 side mission in PSO2, any PSO2 is too easy. Like, okay, I'm curious to see where this is going, because I kind of feel like it always been easy because of like the only thing that made NGS hard was like the time limit in some of the fight. Other than that, like the whole, having everybody reviving you, having you be able to revive with no penalty towards like equipment or anything of that type or affiliate loss. Like, yeah, NGS have always been super easy.
let me try to explain here. I know for some of you guys, you're like, duh, dude, where have you been? I've been saying this forever. Some of you guys, you're like, hey, didn't you talk about how a lot of these things are positive for the community, so on and so forth? I think it's GPID 2. Yeah. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I have, and I feel like it's important to mention. It's important to separate what I like for myself versus what I think is positive for the health of the community in its current state. And to explain that properly, I feel like I need to also kind of explain where I'm coming from in the grander scheme of things. So one thing to keep in mind is that the space of live service gaming and MMO gaming has changed pretty dramatically over the years. It isn't really what it used to be, and that's in part due to, of course, the average gamer changing. Of course, we had, the pandemic and things of that sort.
Yeah, I think honestly a lot of the things that have changed when it comes to like MMO and live store, but not only the monetization way is a given from going from sub to free microtransaction, but not only that. I think the other thing that have changed about it is as the internet and the ability to interact with people and to play with other people became easier and easier and easier over the years, and as we expanded more into everything, like with like your phone being like its own like glorified chat room, having like Discord everywhere, being able to message people wherever, like every aspect of the internet nowadays is about like connections and talking with each other and communicating with each other, good or bad. And in return, it like at a point now that what made early MMOs fascinating, like EverQuest and all the games of like the late 90s into the early 2000s, was all new, and having the ability to talk to people that not like 5 feet away to you.
What happened to Metal Gear?
We will get back to Metal Gear in a moment. But like having the ability to reach out to people outside of your own circle is what made MMO more interesting back in the day. Since let's be honest, a lot of them will glorify chat rooms at the end of the day. Yeah, good Jam Pat had pre-install now, before the release date. Yeah. But yeah, like not even like the pre-install stuff. Just like in general, I kind of feel like that socializing it that was a big draw towards online game originally is now, since it's literally everywhere. And at every moment, you are surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Like, might it be through, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, whatever it might be, and you constantly hearing people opinions, and we will. And like that stuff is like very overwhelming, especially with the climate of today. So I feel like that was like the main reason why you start seeing a lot more MMOs, especially around like the 2013-14 range. Like the fourth time I heavily noticed it was with like KOTOR or Night Old Republic MMO. Of like it feeling like as time went on and how people are more around each other, that like more people are in the camp of like just leave me the fuck alone and let me, you know, play my game and just happen to also be online because everything going online for corporation monetization and control. And I think that is what have honestly changed MMOs in a lot of ways. And then not counting the monetization itself as well. But I think that is the main reason. And also, let's be honest, no MMO can ever do anything more than what most people always experience in like a Discord channel. So that kind of how I feel on that.
Type of
Why it
gamer
isn't.
that really wasn't a part of the space that is now. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know, it is something that we have to think about. But you know, these things are affected, and they do change things on top of, you know, just new generations growing up, things like that. And a big part of that is information technology. Things aren't really hidden anymore. Things that used to take, you know, upwards of weeks to months to come to light for most people, now show up in hours and days, weeks.
I would go as far as it will show up before the game any comes out. That is a very good point he making here. Because it was the whole thing of like that happened with New War. It also happened with a few other MMOs. Well, in the case of New War, the game beta came out. People played the beta. They data mined it. And they knew all the details of the in and out for the net like 6 months of that game. So there was already like in-depth guide videos already made up and ready to go. Like any before the game, any came out. So, like I have said for many years, the only games that ever make me still feel like the olden day of Discovery, it's still like From Software stuff, with like, you know, Elder Wayne, Dark Soul, Demon Souls, like that type of stuff. And that is also another big thing. And that not even counting like getting into the whole argument that I know is very big right now in like FPS multiplayer games of the whole idea of like, you know, Freddy Gamer and you know, YouTuber and Twitch streamers and whatnot, also not helping, which I do agree with in a lot of ways, because like, let's be honest, any someone like me who have made many guide videos over my time, at the end of the day, like that type of stuff would have been like word of mouth, and you know, would have been like playing telephone of like what it will, what it accurate, what been graduated, which add more to your discovery process appealed to like, oh, let me show you that spreadsheet of do like X, Y, and Z. Congratulations, you're now the most powerful in the game before the game comes out. So like 100% agree with him on that.
This is surprising in most cases. In a lot of situations, you'll find that most players know about everything.
Yeah, because mainly data miners and stuff.
Where you have to actively try not to know about things. You have to do things like, hey, look, no spoilers.
Also the other thing about that, like, yeah, if you're also doing like, if you're doing like content creation stuff, like from like my point of view, you know, as someone doing it, and then also if you like, you know, you amplify your viewership on like YouTube or Twitch or wherever you do live streaming, you know, you got thousands upon thousands people being like, oh yeah, oh well, they'll do this, and you get that. So like information like travels so fast. Like if you have ever seen like a Twitch stream of a game that haven't even came out yet, but they invited a handful of streamers into it, and you will have people coming in being like, oh yeah, this, and like the game not even out yet, and like everyone always know every little detail about it. Might it be from that? Might it be from data miners? It just, you know, just kind of how it is. It like all degrees of like discovery and community-ness have kind of like died, and I kind of feel like that not not only we're gonna talk about Matt Pat Hill for a second, chat, and game theory. I think honestly that one of the thing that kind of played into like the success of game theory outside of Five Nights at Freddy's, which obviously did, but in that it kind of fall into the camp of like there would only like a handful of games that very much have that like community driven of discovery, but like the games that have that, it's designed to be that way. And I think honestly that the main reason why game theory blew up as fast as it did was because once they started diving into games like that, like for example, the games like Doki Doki that have like fucking images and URL linked in like audio wave files and getting into like that stuff. So it like outside of them types of game that design in that way, most like mainstream games or just live service game in general, it not designed that way. So it just like you've been like 5 minutes in the game and congratulations, you know how to do everything. Might it be on purpose or might it not be? Just because of how like information fled nowadays. And also, putting information through YouTube videos and stuff. I know for a lot of people, it's better than walking up to someone and asking a complete stranger how to do something.
First time playthrough, don't backseat, so on and so forth. It's a very common thing nowadays because everyone kind of knows everything. And it's a big part due to information technology. We see it, we hear about it, and we talk
like
about
2
it.
seconds away.
I can talk to someone on the other side of the entire world about something instantaneously. My alliance alone has people that are in all different time zones across the world. People that might be in Australia, people that are in Europe, people that are in Asian continents, things like that. Like they're everywhere. So information technology is huge. Things just are not the same. And with information technology growing, gaming also had to evolve. In the past, where you could have like small little, what's what I'm looking for here, puzzles, last for a while. They now, if you have a game come out and it's been 48 hours, you could probably just Google the name of the puzzle and you'll find an answer to it.
I wouldn't even say that long.
But like,
I give it like 3 hours.
You don't have to look for it. The thing about it is that's just part of what exists now.
Like War Kate scenario.
A lot of game developers have to deal with. They have to work through. They have to figure out, hey, look, I want this thing to be interesting and different. I want it to be more difficult for people. How do I do that? How do I make something like this to exist? And a lot of times when it's happening is you have one of two situations.
Honestly, like sadly, the main way a lot of devs do that, like I said, is hiding stuff in like Mortco audio file, like data burying like images that you have to have like a separate program that you need to figure out how to open. Like I said, look at like any game that does that stuff. Them are the only game that kind of do it, and then it like that is at the same time at that point, you're making your game for a very specific audience, mainly the game theory audience.
Either you get time gating, which is terrible, which it's really, really irritating.
We have seen a lot of games doing that.
People can do over a sort of
Phantasy did that.
Just last longer, which a lot of people are not big fans of that. Or what you end up getting is people just grind things into paste. It doesn't last long enough, and you get the conversation. There's not enough content.
Yeah.
You probably ask yourself, why does it feel like there's never enough things to do nowadays? And the reality is we're blasting through it faster than we ever have before.
I think it's a little of a mix though. Like on one hand, yes, you blast into it way faster because of the information gain is like so much faster to the point of not even being really gained. You just know it. I think the other thing about that is I think that also play into that is a lot of games, a lot of live service, a lot of MMOs are put out super early. Like, don't get me wrong, some of these games still take like 5 years to get, to where they are when they launch. But the way they are made, it very much like spread out way farther between like the game, the cosmetics, the microtransaction, the stretching content out to be released over time. Instead of being released over expansion, they release over a month to like 6 months instead of like 1 to 2 years. So in return, it like stuff is more spread out and less like focus upon. because they are trying to hit so many different demographic, you know, the whale, the non-whale, the game player, the cosmetic people. And I think that also kind of plays into it. So like you told that with the knowledge, and yeah, stuff is just gone super fast. Like I think that is what mainly
Blast
playing
through
that.
it. Like the leveling. I've never in all my years seen an MMO give out levels like this game.
Yeah.
The fast track you to the end game. And the end game is boring as all hell.
It did point out your critical. That's what in-game is. It scratches. Which I do agree. That is a good point. Exclusively, like I was speaking broadly in any MMO live, so but like, yeah, we're gonna dumb it down to just NGS 100%. Like, NGS is like the perfect example of a game that is 100% it just ramp up. You know, like example of this is like, you know, you play like Final Fantasy 14, you play WoW. I don't know about WoW nowadays, but let's say Final Fantasy 14. And like, I got like, what, the last time we played it, we put in about what, 400 or 500 hours, and I was sitting at like level 62 or something out of what, like 100. Like, don't get me wrong, I know I'm on the slower pace side because triple triad, but still, the ideal there is, you know, it's still gonna take you a while. With any like doing like efficiency, like go here, do that, you level. Any that it's still dozens of hours at least. Well, like yeah, NGS stuff was just like, oh, you played for 5 hours? Congratulations, you mat level. Or the thing that happened all the time doing like Cavalis and Athea, where they just put that NPC that you talk to and like, oh, hi, you ready for the content? Healed 20 million affiliates, and now you're just like one level away from max in a matter of like 3 seconds of talking to an NPC. As you all seen when Sion was losing his goddamn mind back in the day about that whole NPC. That right there, the other thing is like how leveling and battle power, once again, as of February, very much felt like it's there because they doing the RPG MMO, but it doesn't actually mean or do or have any amount of satisfaction from leveling. It more of just like he'll like a 5, like maybe a couple hours, like 5-6 hours, like from 1 to mat level, a busy walk, and then we never gonna think about it again. You know? And like NGS is really bad about that, especially back in the day, and probably the same or worse or anybody today handle probably. Which I
Most
would
other
doubt.
games are way slower. Like FF14 is the plot. Wow. The leveling is the fun. At
Yeah.
least back in the day. It's faster in modern WoW, but there is still a reason to go to different zones leveling on alts too. Have a different leveling experience. This shit in NGS is like, talk to this dude. Boom. 2 levels. Pray return to what's his face in Central for the millionth time. Boom. 2 more levels.
Yep. And then 5 minutes later, you are mat level. Because they like the whole thing, like whenever they did like the level increase, like when they went from like, you know, 65 to 70, 75, whatever, like literally to gain like 5 to 6 level at like level 70, 80 took like hour and a half. And that is just from like not talking to NPCs. And then like if you're going from like level like 80 to 100, it like in Odal MMO, that would be like 6 months of your life right there. But yeah, NGS and specifically is just like now, like to the point that I ain't question like why do we any have level beyond from like a callback to, you know, the Odal game, you know. But like I said, NGS is very much, at least as of February, very much is focused to get you to in-game. But then again, in-game at that point is go farm capsule that may or may not drop to get money to buy outfits, or time to pull out your credit card and spend 10 to 12 hours a day in the salon. There are your options. Or, you know, you can always go being the people who idle and central, you know, if you want to go that way. And just like that have always been disappointing. Because at least in like PSO2, it's like, oh, you hit 75. Now go level another class. Oh, you got that class like level, what, 65, 70? Congratulations, your stats have increased. And for every class that you level, your overall account stats goes up. So you actually had a motivation. And in return, like even the key stuff, you still took a while to level in
I've never
PSO2.
ever seen that. I remember when I did that on and out. My mouth was agape. Like, I actually stopped after a bit. Cause I was like, the fuck did they do? Are you just trying to mask the fact that barely anything of consequence happens from the death of that blue-haired fucker, I forgot his name, and the end of the current story patch?
Yeah, I still say, as once again, as of February, I still say the intro NGS is the best part of NGS from like a story aspect, 100%. Like I remember playing that at 1.0 or when the game came out of beta, I guess it was beta. When it came out of beta, it was like I remember playing that and just like, oh my god, they're gonna fit my complaint about the story. Because I didn't like in PSO2 how the story was so like fragmented, since it was like kind of it off onto it on like little thing that didn't really matter at all to the overall game. So I was like, oh my god, we finally gonna get like story and cutscenes like with gameplay. Because my biggest issue was how much of a visual novel PSO2 can be.
Feels like they are trying to montage the story to give you a sense like a lot happened. See, you were level 1.
You're not wrong. It's like, yeah, that would honestly be the best way to put the story nowadays, a montage. Like, 100%.
And now you are max level. That like, a lot of levels. A lot of story.
Yeah, well, like, realistically, because I think, like that when this set in for me was when Coon started playing, and he went from, like, never playing NGS, and within like 2.5 days, he was already pretty much at end game, and he wasn't even playing that much. And when I saw him, like when he just rolled up on me, like yo, and I saw he killed on like you literally only been playing for like what, like 6 hours, and he like already at the time like 50, 60. I'm like what? And he wasn't even, to my knowledge, I don't think Coon was doing like the robot stuff. He was just like through normal questing. I just like I honestly, to be totally honest, of all the MMOs I have ever played, I don't think I've ever played an MMO that level the fastest as NGS does.
If things that we released or that released previously released nowadays that weren't time gated, they would be destroyed in the same sort of ways. It's insane how things have changed. Things like world racing in
oh yeah, Kuna not Freddy at
MMOs. They're now being broadcast.
Like Kuna the opposite of Freddy. Well, it comes down to his roguelike card games anyway.
Everyone, you're figuring out strategies because you can watch other people do them before you get a chance to do them yourselves. Half the time when I was doing week 1 progression rating, most of the fights were beaten in the first 2 to 3 days before I even got a chance to try the fight in the first place. We already had strategies that existed before we ever got a chance to get around to them. And yeah, we'd come up with our own strategies for sure. There were things that worked better for us than so on and so forth, but it's something that happened very commonly nowadays. All this to say that yeah, the game has changed and we adapted with it. So why am I talking about PSO2 being too easy? Well, whenever I don't have a video idea, or whenever I'm actually, to be perfectly honest, this is more of like my thought process or my process in the first place. Whenever I am either going through Discord or am I going through Reddit or reading up on different things, that people are like, oh, don't go to the Reddit, don't go into the official Discord. But the reality is these are players. They're like us, right? These are people that are playing the game much like myself. So I do want to see what they're doing, and to keep myself grounded, I want to see what it is they're talking about, right? I'm not the average Joe. I play this game a ton, and I always will.
The thing about this is, like, for me, back when I was doing content fully about NGS, I remember what I always did. I always got up, went to the method board back in the PSO2 days. I went to the method board. I went to the the help wanted section of the method board, see if anybody in there was any questions, what they were having a problem with, what I can make a video about to help them. And then I would go to Reddit as well to see what people were bitching and moaning or needing help with. And then I would go to YouTube back when there were more than just Quopy and like 2 other people making content. I would go to YouTube, search up the video for that day to see which one was like popping off. And then I would like quote reference all that with like, okay, what are people wanting and what is actually being viewed? And that's how I made my video, how I picked what videos I did back in the day. So like, yeah, like I got, and then not even counting like there at the end, you know, like I always said it, like I knew what the community was doing in one way or another. Any of, you know, we wasn't like, you know, fully hanging out in chats or anything. You know, I was hearing things from the grapevine constantly about the fandom and the community. But yeah, that kind of how it was back in the day of how I did content or how I decided what to do video.
Got a special place in my heart. I've always loved Phantasy Star games, and I met my wife playing this game, so it's always going to have an extra, you know, sort of.
It's funny cause asked TI from a little over a year ago. I was hopeful and giving excuses for the game. Oh, they'll come around. This could be better, boy.
Yeah.
Shit changed.
Yeah. I was always in the camp of like, this is how you make the game better. They're not going to. Or like my statement that I still stand by back in the day and any now, my whole thing of like, eventually the game will hopefully get better. It's just the question is, when it get better, will anyone care? And I still stand by that statement. Because it's like, yeah, NGS was like, once again, as of February, is a better game than it was at launch. But it took like 4 years to get there. And them 4 years very much seemed like they were dragging their feet in a lot of ways. So it like, at the way they're going, we could be like a decade in before we get like bare minimum like changes. That should have been there day one or been grayed out in the menu since day one. And like, that was my whole thing about NGS. Like, yeah, the game has so much potential, but they keep throwing it down the fucking toilet. I agree with that as well, Joe. Like, like I said, going into NGS, like NGS was on a silver spoon, and then Sega.
I wanted more PAs for like fucking months. They give us like one every year or two. It feels like.
I still loved like one of the things I thought was the neatest thing ever in PSO2. Was how we had, what was it? It was like 15, 20 different PAs. And then they all had like level where you can like level them up. And then like the cool thing for me was unlocking all them PA, leveling them all up to, what was that? I think it was like part 10 or something. I think it was 10, right? Like level 10. And then literally building out combos. And then how they had like movement PAs. You know, like the PA that were like, oh, if you do this PA with that PA, equate a whole new animation. And you wouldn't know that without you literally with just experimenting. And I thought that was the coolest shit ever, which is like the main thing I loved about movement PA.
That's why the combat got stale for me. Can't even mix things up on your favorite weapon.
You can't. Yeah, you pretty much up with the same like 6 ability elite back in the day anyway. But yeah, like when I learned about movement PAs, and when I started experimenting with was it Phantom? Oh god, what was the name of the class? I'm trying to remember. The one that could use a Y4, but they used like a hand like a sword. It was my main. It escaped me. It late. My mind had gone. But nonetheless, like with that class, once I learned it, like, oh, you do that one PA, and then you hold this other PA for 2 seconds, and then while you're holding, activate this other PA, and then you kill it with your bucket. Like, you would literally get at like top speed running through. That would use up all your AP, and then when your AP went out, it would do like an AoE attack. When I found like that type of stuff out, I was like losing my mind of excitement of just like how you was able to build combos and discover like ability and combo chain that wasn't told to you. You know, it was kind of like figuring out like super abilities in Symphony of the Night by, you know, different weapons having different abilities. And like, you know, if you just sent no matching square or O or whatever, you never discover it. But just having like that combo link, it like was so cool and so much fun to actually do with the combat. And that's why I think the combat in PSO2 never really got old. Just because, and then you join like how each classic could use like 3 different weapons. And it just
Good
like,
movement PAs made me feel like doing Gosu movement in Mario 64.
yeah,
Feels good to go fast.
exactly.
And chain momentum into a fence.
Yeah, I would say that's a good example. Like Mario 64, like the 3D Marios in general, of just like the ability to do like in the Mario Kart being like, you know, mid jump to low jump to backflip to slide to, you know, and then get some other totally different movement. Absolutely. 100%. Like that is a good reference to what I'm talking about. But yeah, like none of that stuff exists in NGS. But yeah, like Hero, I will joke. Yeah, Hero, the thing I loved about Hero, it felt like key pulsing from oh god, if we can, the Team Ninja Soul game. Neo. It felt like Neo like Soul pulsing. And I like that was like so satisfying because that was a whole gimmick of like, especially doing with twin machine guns, of like wanting your PA out and then doing like a PA combo. And if you could nail the combo, you get all your PA back right away. It was so fucking satisfying. But India never made me feel like that at all with it combat. Like ever. I feel like with PSO, just like, okay, I'm just doing the same like 2 to 3 combos and that kind of it. Yeah, Etoile was great. I really like Etoile as well. Yeah, pairing between button presses was fun if I with Weirboy, yeah. And then that the other thing, like dealing with the Samurai Quat, like actually having like a Tamagotchi type of gameplay to it with feeding and whatnot. And the candy boxed up, like I guess that would be like the best way to put it. Like honestly, like PSO2 combat, I feel was like way more thought out and way more making each class unique than NGS have done. And it really do feel like one of them cases with NGS, they just kind of grabbed a lot of that. Like I said back in the day, it felt like the classes in NGS felt like more like Scion classes, but without the depthness of it. And then how much of them all started kind of just blending together in a lot of ways. Like, don't get me wrong, it like, you know, you have the stuff happening, you know, with like the Summoner and NGS. But like everything was like mainly so like combat driven and less about filament and less about outside progression. Outside of throwing like, you know, augments on your weapon, which is whatever. But yeah, like a lot of the decision making have been really removed from NGS when it comes to that stuff. And it just very much made the whole game feel like lesser than what NGS did and less interesting. Or what PSO did, I mean. Yeah, they made it
You
casual.
think it was
yeah.
done to make it easier for casual players?
I think
I could
so.
see that.
I
They
think
failed
so.
to strike the right balance though if that was the goal. I'm okay with a little streamlining.
Oh, yeah. What edges it never, you know, never won. Like, probably an example of that would be, like, let's be honest, with a lot of the combo system and like movement PAs, like, how much of that shit is, like, kind of up to you to figure out, or, you know, reading videos of guys. Like, it'd be nice if, like, with that stuff, like, if they did that in NGS, where you could just pause the game and bring up, like, a move list, like you would do in, like, a fighting game. And then it would literally just be like, oh, this button to this button to this button to this button. Or like live changing, depending on what moves you have equipped. Like, that would be like, you know, smoothing the edge to make it more casual while keeping the depth notes. But yeah, I think so. I honestly think the whole like cutting down the PA and getting rid of the PA leveling, getting rid of like how they interact with each other outside of a few little examples, I think 100% it would, to try to streamline the game for the more casual players. Like, well, like NGS was like very much, or well, PSO2 very much started leaning into like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, like Depnet, like Devil May Cry, like, you know, like 3 and Bayonetta, like 1, like Depnets. And I think they realized that a lot of the player base, or the more casual player base they were going for, just wasn't going to do that. So like I get the perfect example of that would be like what they did with Street Fighter, when you have like the normal like classic combat system in Street Fighter, and then you have the new one that you put like 1 or 2 button and you do roughly the same thing. You know, where they cut combo down to like 2 button press into like 6. I kind of feel like that what NGS did. Yeah, and
There's
100% for the casual.
A little bit of extra bias, a very large one, when it comes to PSO2. So at the end of the day, it's something that's going to happen. But I do want to keep myself somewhat grounded to understand what people are talking about, what players are talking about, so on and so forth. So I do go to these different places and kind of get an idea of what they're doing. And one thing I like to do is make notes and look at things and look at trends and look at how things have been going based on what we've had access to. And a very common thing I'm noticing is that we're complaining about things that we're asking for in a very large way now. So there's some things that like they show up and I'm like, why did they decide to do this? I don't know who asked for this. This is very strange. But there are other things that, like, for example, with this whole unit situation, I'm getting complaints from players, or I'm seeing complaints from players talking about things like, you know, the units are now unsellable. They've gotten via resources, so on and so forth. And I'm like, this is exactly what we asked for. It was a very common thing for players to complain about everything being tied into the market, especially with the fact that, you know, free-to-play players can't really interact with the market.
I think this was one of the most annoying things I saw. When I saw what I see as an unintended, awkward mechanic become what you need to do to deal ideal damage on my favorite class. It made me switch. Then the update happened for the class. And then I found out it was still in the fucking game. For fuck's sake. You're trying to make it easier. And then you keep dumb mechanics where you can't tell if it's a bug or not.
Okay, what is that? Wait, you talking about like the... By the way, how long is that video? 1 minute? Okay. Wait up, Harry Stab. Yeah, I can see how some of this stuff would be like a little confusing if it's a bug or not. Also, like the other thing for me is like also like readability.
You basically counter and then step at nearly the same time. It's a way to do double parry.
Yeah, that is a good question. Just like, was it on pulpit? Was it not? Or was that like one of them cases where it accidentally became a thing they just kept it?
Same way, they can't sell things, so it's harder for them to make money. So what they were looking for is an upgrade path that wasn't reliant on money. A very common thing that a lot of people asked for. And they did.
Also, real quick, I still say the whole AC crash in the shop is still bad.
That they not only gave us the units, I mean, you had the ability to go after them early if you wanted to, but they've now given us plus 90 varianted units accessible via simply just doing the event, which you actually don't even have to farm for.
I was happy with the rework announced and they kept it. Like, are the classes balanced around me having to do that? The fuck?
Yeah, like this whole thing, like, honestly, I'm with Kronos on that, where like, it doesn't seem like a bad thing, because it was the whole thing of what I talked about, of like with the armor and stuff in the unit. Having it, because I kind of feel like, honestly, with a lot of the unit stuff is, you kind of got it and you didn't really have to farm that much outside a few exceptions. But yeah, this is after my time of them making it where you can't sell it, which is an interesting choice. I still don't know how I feel about being tied to an event though, but
your
yeah,
dailies, which I'm doing right
like
now when I talk to you guys in a video.
giving you reason to elite go out and try to
dailies
farm
right
it.
now.
But once again, that then get into the question about like the drop weight and if bad or not.
Doesn't really take very long to do them, and recording a video at the same time while I talk to you about this situation itself, and you get everything that you need. Like the average player who isn't looking to like absolutely go super ham, which I'm gonna talk about that in a moment as well, who isn't looking to go fully best in slot, who doesn't really care about that sort of thing, like
Me.
it couldn't be easier to gear up in PSO2, and it's something that people are complaining about. I don't understand it. On one side I'm seeing the complaints about it, the other side I'm seeing people say it's not worth it. So it's really confusing to me even further in a lot of situations. Let's double check and make sure we finish that task really quick here. Daily. Yeah, we finished it. All right, awesome. So yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I think part of the reason behind this is the game has gotten just too easy. One thing I'm noticing, and this is something that a lot of live service and MMOs have to go through. Something that I watched, Final Fantasy go through recently with the most recent expansion, where they've kind of gotten a bit of return to form, where things are a bit more difficult. They talked about the previous expansion, things were a little too easy. Things you really didn't have to try for anything. Even the hard grind was made substantially easier, where you didn't have to really.
Yeah, because I would say honestly the biggest thing healed up probably from the way it's seeming, like healing about that now, would be not so
it's
much.
It's not worth it, cause you are just farming the same brain dead content with overpowered gear.
Yeah, that kind of where we're gonna go. Of just like a little bit of that. Especially if it is like, because of knowing NGS, especially like I said, like pre-February, of it just being like tied to one event and that's it. Because that was like one of my biggest complaints. Well, I still wish a lot of stuff would tie, which it kind of, some stuff kind of did that, but not fully. Of doing the whole like multiple activity to receive a currency to then trade to get the item, kind of like how weapon badge work in PSO2. But making it like a little more deeper than just like handing out like candy. Because if you go in and you do it for 10 minutes and you get the item, or like what they did back in the day of doing like, oh, here a new limited time, you beat it, here you go, you can have the weapon armor, whatever. It need to be like a middle ground now of like having the ability to do what you want to get it, but not like have it tied to RNG super heavily, or
Fashion is unironically the end game.
Oh, it is.
You get good gear to farm the boring content faster, to be more efficient. Cause the drop rate is bad. To get items. To get money. To get fashion.
You're not wrong. That is the loop. That is the in-game loop outside of pulling out your credit card. 100%. Which is the thing that always annoyed me of like, why do I want to get, better equipment if I don't care about the items I can like buy or the fashion, because just don't care. But yeah, not long though. So it's like, yeah, they feel like one of the things that the balancing obviously seems a little off in this. And yeah, I do 100% agree on like probably shouldn't be giving out stuff, because that's kind of how I felt about Wayfinder once it went like single player, of just like how like it wasn't hard to begin with, like I always said in Wayfinder, like 2 or 3 hours and 6 at moat and you got what you want if you know what you're doing. Well, now it's a little more like just handing it out like candy, and that what it sound like to me. It sound like they on two opposite extremes when it comes to this stuff.
They try to get your weapon, and a lot of people really didn't like that. Coming from a situation where a lot of people talked about the grind being really annoying, and over the top.
I still say Zig is still the way I
And
would
if you were
honestly
like
handle it.
me, and I can't stand killing the same open world enemies
Yeah.
who melt
Yeah.
when you cough on them for hours on end. You swipe,
Yeah.
and then you get bored anyway.
But
At
the
least I
thing-
look like a pretty hooker.
For me, that one of them cases of like, which is the main thing. I'm like, yeah, you need multiple progression paths to get whatever your goal is. If it's single thing like that of like killing a warbot or whatever, or doing, you know, a battle sector a billion times or a limited time event, like, yeah, that should kill all motivation there, and then that not counting depending on where they fall in the drop weight of being, you know, horrible or fine, I guess. But yeah, that's the main reason. Like, I still say the best way of progression is still either Monster Hunter, the Zig Shop in PSO2, or the Wayfinder way, especially during the MMO days. Like, them are still the three best progression system for this type of MMO. And it just like it kind of sucks how it like it seemed like any now listening to this. But like I said, like the two extremes that Sega goes on. Either too easy or way too difficult. Or non-existent. And I see they still haven't figured that out yet. Like, at that point, just fucking whip out the Monster Hunter way, you know? Like, which they kind of did with PSO2, if you think about it. In PSO2, there were bot battle that had, like, certain body parts that you could break to get a ability for a drop. I'm looking at that giant samurai dude. His example of that, where you could break his shoulder, his legs, and he could drop distant weapons and stuff. Like, they need to bring that back. They need to bring that back really bad here. But yeah, they need to bring that type of stuff back badly.
A lot of people, what they found out, basically, I'm losing my mind here, not doing this to the script, by the way, so apologies. But what they found out was a lot of people that were complaining like this, they were the vocal minority. Most players enjoyed their longer grind. They enjoyed the feeling of, you know, putting in that effort and getting that weapon at the end of it. And when that was taken away, a lot of people got really, really upset about that. So people got really, really upset about that. So, I mean, they've kind of gone back on that with this new expansion. They've kind of worked on it, a bit of a return to form, bring a bit more stress in what you're doing each day. You know, they kind of worded it as stress, which is kind of funny when you think about an MMO, because like playing a video game to de-stress, not stress. But yeah, it is what it is.
I think that depends.
Basically, just saying they're giving you more.
It depends on what the mindset is.
More of a reason to try, more reason to give. You know, one of those situations where you don't really have to try at all. And honestly, it kind of hit. Like when I went to play the expansion for Dawn Trail, I went and did the first expert dungeon. I mean, normally expert dungeons are pretty rough the first week of a new expansion, but this was a whole new level, man. Like
more like patience. I mean, they can play with a stick or soda can for hours if they want. I want something that's more stimulating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still want like cool progression paths and a proper sense of like I said, mainly progression.
Kick the can is goated, I guess.
So
I never really paid attention to most dungeons at all. I didn't really care all that much, and the first dungeon kind of slapped like pretty quickly. If you weren't paying attention, you got absolutely rocked by some of those bosses. Some of them I kind of feel like are BS, but you really had to actually try, and it was a very different feeling based on, you know, what we had been used to from so many dungeons for so long. And it was awesome. It was fun. It made me think about actually going an expert. Like, now granted, for a long time I went an expert on basically any class, like, because I was like, dude, it's easy. I'm not going to have to think about it. I don't have to try. It's whatever. I'm going to get to the end of the dungeon in about 15 minutes. We're going to pull wall to wall. I'm going to AoE the crap out of what we're fighting, and then we're going to get to the end of the dungeon in about 15 minutes. That's what's going to happen every single time. And while that mostly happened, there were bosses, like mini bosses mixed into some of the packs. We had bosses that were quite literally one-shotting if you weren't paying attention to the mechanics properly. It was pretty insane to feel. And honestly, it was awesome. It was a great feeling. Now, this is like, Final Fantasy doing their return to form. With PSO2, what I'm finding is actually something similar to what I experienced, funny enough, in a relationship long time ago. One of my exes. This is around the time I first started streaming, right? And actually, funny enough, this is around the time I had lost my job for a while. I was at like a 6-month stint of not having a job, and I went, just kind of pushed into streaming really hardcore. At the time, this ex did this thing where she basically complained. She was like, "Hey, you sound like you're having so much fun with everyone else, and you're not really like hanging out with me at all, blah, 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 blah." I started distancing myself from some of the people that I had talked to at the time. I, held back, I hung out with her more, I hung out with them less, so on and so forth. And then I kept doing this, and she kept complaining about it, and I kept doing it. So I kept, I was with people less and less and less and less, until I found out that I didn't have any friends. I wasn't hanging out with anyone. I wasn't doing anything with anyone. I was basically streaming by myself. Now, granted, I still had my streaming audience or whatever, and I kind of pulled away from doing that too, right? Like it was terrible. It was really awful. But I kind of pulled back away from doing that, and I found that after all of that was taken away, she was still complaining. It still wasn't enough. And then I realized the problem wasn't what I was doing. It was her. And it sucks to realize that, right? But the thing is that if someone doesn't want something, it doesn't matter what you do to change it. It's not going to make it any better. How does this relate to PSO2 in the slightest? And this is where I'm going to give you guys the kind of like, I'm not gonna say the beat drop or the shoe drop or whatever it happens to be, but
I got Will Dot. It did work
solely, and I truly believe this, like from the deepest part of my heart, right? And this is just for me personally. SEGA needs to stop listening to people who don't want to play the game. I mean this wholeheartedly. I don't mean this as an insult.
Yeah, I personally think, like, let be real. Like, listening to people in the community, any if they don't play the game, and like, there are things you can pull from that is useful, but at the same time is if you are lacking the vision for your product and you are lacking realization of your product and the overall scheme of indicate live server MMOs, and if you are only going off of the vocal minority of your player base, and at that point mainly like Japanese players, it's still not ideal.
Maybe they should find out why the people felt the need to leave their game.
Exactly. And like, instead of like doubling down on like the bubble you create, and like, yeah, and like I feel like the game, and they go for any game, can be way better off if you look at your player base, you figure out what good, what bad, what they saying, what can you go off of, what is the actual problem that is causing your player base to feel that way, as well as having your vision and a vision of seeing what is happening around you. Like the whole thing of speaking of 14, what happened with 14 when the new director, the one everyone loved, took over, came in after 1.0 and was like, you all going to start playing WoW. You all going to start playing other video games. And then, so much of that played into helping the design of 14.
I put in a bunch of hours.
So
I did my time. I didn't hate it for most of those hours. I just got more sour as I didn't see any urgency to change.
Yeah, that is understandable. That's kind of how I felt like overall, especially over the last like yield there, like 2023-ish, especially. But yeah, like there were a lot to taking feedback. There were a lot to design. There were a lot to like community of your peers. But if you have the lack of caring, knowledge, focus, questioning, and looking outside of your bubble, you will run into so many problems. Like you need to have that outlook, and you cannot like double down on one specific part of it. It like all or nothing type when it comes to like designing.
Anyone else, but quite literally, we are having people complain about playing the game, like having to go out and get your gear, having to actually earn an upgrade,
let's be honest, how much of the people that are complaining about that, like, not to shortchange them, but also how many of the people are the super casual people that the actual gameplay is like a small percentage of the reason they play NGS, and it contradicting what they want from NGS. You know, might it be the more social stuff? Might it be the more idling stuff? Might it be the fashion stuff? But the thing to keep in mind is it's literally all about how you train your consumable base. Because if you are good at training your consumable base, that will make everything so much easier for a design athlete when it comes to understanding your players. Um, but at the same time, it's like you also have the double-edged sword of this. Of like, if you have trained your player base when they're just going to give you items and you don't need to upgrade battle power because everything just dies, or you're going to spend most of your time, you know, do a few clashes, sell some items, buy the armor set, make you semi-competent, or you wait for a seasonal event to come around, get competent now or that, or a limited time event, and then you go back doing the fashion game. It's like, yeah, you literally just cut your addicts off in some ways, and going against what they've been training you to do with the quote-unquote end game for the last, like, what, 3-4 years now. And you wonder why them people are upset about having to play the game.
Or they scale your damage, so what the hell is the point?
Exactly, that too. That annoyed the fuck out of me with the damn alien. Like, why do I need to push to get my DPS higher if you're just gonna nerf it depending on where I am? That annoyed me so fucking bad.
Having to farm.
But yeah, this is a training your player bait problem, and what this is.
To get something. Guys, it took 45 minutes to upgrade my armor to the new variant version. And people are still saying that it's a scam and not worth it. You did not have to try. You didn't have to do anything. And people are still complaining and wanting more.
You gotta leave the salon in the town and
I mean, when they released new armor and gave it to people for free, like for leveling, that just kind of tracked for me. That's pretty standard for most games these days. You have like a starter set of gear that you go with, and then like you kind of upgrade from there. The problem with a lot of players is they don't ever move past that.
But the question is, how much of the game actually require you to move past that?
They learned from Troy.
And they did. But let's be honest, how much of the game is actually teaching the player to move past that? Like, what? Outside of, what? At the time anyway. Like that one dot fall fight that you go to in Athea. Like, well, not Athea, with Tane, I mean. Like, other than that fight being difficult at the time, or maybe a dual quest, but at the same time, it's like, why do you need to get, like, good and upgrade for that stuff? Because half of the time it ain't drop anything decent to begin with. So it just filler content to be filler content outside of one or two items that you gonna have to run thousands of times before you even see it. So, like I said, just a walking, like, contradiction of, like, educating your players.
PSO doesn't really punish you for that at all. You can do every piece of content in this game, barring the most difficult piece of content, like the hardest piece, which is at the moment is MDFD. Barring MDFD, and I actually don't know if that's still the case anymore, by the way, since we can level up now. But you can do the most difficult piece of content barring MDFD, as long as you are max level.
Yep.
And have the free gear that they hand you.
And then hopefully
it's like 95% of the game trains them one way, and the other hits them with the subtlety of a brick wall.
Exactly. That is a very good way to put it. I pretty much boiled down my analogy to the bare minimum. Absolutely. 100%. And like I said, this is something that is just in anything in life is like, if you have a product that you're giving to people, you train your audience, and your audience train you, and then you dap around it to train them back into the way you want them to be. Like 100%. And when it not done correctly and they hit that brick wall, like, yeah, that when you start getting complaints like this. 100%.
Without having to try, and you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's totally enough, right? That gear is totally enough. if you're using that gear after everything they've given us, you're absolutely griefing yourself. And it's not even like, oh, a try hard thing. Let's say you're a fashionista and you're like, I want to farm fashion. If you're using the free gear they...
What up?
Gear doesn't matter. Until just this one fight. Keck, get back on the treadmill.
Yeah, you remember I went into that myself with that Dot 4 fight. And like, remember, I was in that same camp of just like, I understood what well that brick wall was and why it was like that. And you know, that just killed all progression for me to the point that like, oh, if I get the item, I get the item. If I don't, I don't. They would give me something equally on par in a few months anyway. Who cares? And then you had like what we saw when they introduced that Dot 4 fight. Well, like the player bait kind of rebelled against it just because like people could not any get into that fight at launch because that was like the brick wall. Because it's like you train your audience to like, oh, you bored, go farm item, farm augments. Oh, you want to get killed up? It's fine. You mat level, everything gonna die. Like the what scenario here of challenge and maybe a time limit on 1 or 2 fights. And then we saw what happened when they introduced that Dot 4 fight. Everybody lost their goddamn minds. And like yeah, that right there was like a failure in design in every way. Like, because like I get wanting to make harder content. I get wanting to like give the player bait that like we need harder content. I get it. But at the same time, you can't go from like 1 to 100, you know? Like you gotta do like a slow scale up to actually make that worthwhile. Especially the way NGS had them player bait trained to begin with.
I remember getting gifted the appropriate gear from SEGA a few months after. And it wasn't the mechanics that made it hard. One-shotted that fight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like the mechanics are there as a delusion. Like don't get me wrong, and like some of the mechanic stuff is like it maybe if you like a little under, maybe. But yeah, that was like my biggest thing overall, just like realizing at a certain point that like, why do I need to try if Sega's just gonna give me the stuff in a couple months? It like I'm like any if I wasn't making PSO content at the time, like if I was just playing it to play it in general, it like I still wouldn't done the grind just because of like once I realized how to grind, well, I'm just like, nah, fuck that. I'm good. I'm just gonna petty off and go do something else. And if I get it, I get it type of deal. And then like Sega started like reinforcing that. And it just like at that point it's like I don't care about cosmetics. Like the power strength doesn't really matter outside of like one fight. And any if they release it and we can't do it right now, I'll wait 6 months and then I'll be able to do it. And then realizing how bad the loot system is, it's just like, okay, at that point, I'm just doing it for completionist or a title or whatever. And like, you know, do it once, beat it, see it, and then never touch it again. Like that how Sega kind of trained me to be. And it like, that is not great any more so as my job to couple PSO at the time. It like, I should be wanting to have the bet guild in the game. I should want to be making videos about that stuff. I should be teaching that stuff. But like at a certain point, it will like pointless. Like literally, I'm gonna say something, and then like a week later, we're gonna be obsolete because they're gonna be like, "Here you go, here your armor."
They hand you,
or they knock it down where it doesn't matter.
Griefing your own fashion farm. It's insane how bad that gear is comparatively to the stuff that they hand you for free. And people are still using it. And this isn't like, hey,
gotta have that vital meter skin thing. Keck.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a legend title from FF14.
Totally not.
What I really mean is that as flawed of a system as battle power is, it is far too forgiving.
Yeah.
You should not be able to get into every single piece of content available in the game with.
I agree with the battle power thing. I still say, I think after retain, the battle power matter up to retain, because like I fucking love retain because that was like battle power matter, but the grind wasn't like insane. So it was like, oh, you go into the main story, and then they were like, oh, you need X battle power to do the net quest. And then you'd be like, oh, okay. I'm gonna go fight some dreads. I'm gonna go do a battle sector. I'm gonna go do some origin quests. Um and then like, you know, a couple hours, like 2-3 hours later, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to continue with the plot. Let's go. So it actually, like, the battle power cap that would require and retain motivated you as a player to go out there and afford retain. And by affording and collecting stuff and fighting the dreads in the battle sector, you are organically gaining the battle power needed to continue with the
I
story.
think battle power is weird. You could put on augments that don't even raise your weapon type's damage and it would still raise it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I was saying, like with this, like example what I'm talking about, like the battle power originally wasn't like an increase of power. It was like a cap to lock content behind it. But yeah, like it was really good in retain. And then by the time we got to Cavalwitz, like I remember the time that I will like why is this any a thing? Was I did a main story mission, and then literally got a cutscene being like, okay, you need a battle power of 3,000, whatever it was at the time. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to go level out and retain and look around. And, you know, this is like, you know, going off of what we did in retain. I was thinking like, oh, Caval is going to be the same. And then literally I get the NPC being like, you need to mount affiliate. And then the fight ends, I level up, or the mission end, level up, and I'm instantly like 20, 30 point over what would need it. And it was just like, oh, you can now do the net story mission. So like, why did I even bother getting a cutscene being like, I need it at battle power? Like, why is this a thing? Because it like, at no point in Cabal any content was like locked behind battle power. And I think once again, that go back to the SEGA problem of being on two extremes on either side and not in the middle. Of just being like, I'm pretty sure someone probably bit and moaned in Japan about Watain of being like, oh, I just want to do the story. I don't want to, you know, run around and fight in a battle sector for 20 minutes. I just want to do the story that, you know, take like 5 hours to do. And so in return, they like nerfed it down to the point where like in Cabal, like you have battle power, but none of it ever matter. At no point I ever hit like a stop point in the main story. And, you know, that just kind of carried through all the way up to when we stopped. And it, like, that was like my big issue with battle power. Once again, like the whole point of battle power and leveling just felt pointless. And now, you know, nowadays you go to retain like as a new player and it just like, it doesn't even matter. It just doy, you done. And just like, what was the point? Why did we change it? Because it was like, it was good in retain.
With the free gear they hand you by max level, and you're probably thinking, oh well, you have to max level. It is not difficult to max level. It is not hard to get leveled up. In the past, in PSO2, like in base PSO2, all you had to do was level and you can get into content, and that was awful. People were able to do some pretty annoying things getting into that content. Now again, it's not perfect situation that I'm saying, hey look, this needs to be iterated on. But SEGA needs, and this is in my opinion, we have to stop listening to people who don't want to play the game. It's fine if you want to be a lobby rat, that's totally fine. But I feel like if you're a lobby rat, you logged in, you were given your free gear, you should not be able to do everything. You should have to have some form of progression. You should have to go into this and say, hey look, work on this.
But the thing is, if you detract the people with content and they all lobby rats, that time they playing the game and not scratching.
Get this piece of gear. When you get into this, you can now do this thing and you can now work on that. It should feel like a reward for you to be able to go into the newest piece of content because your gear.
The thing is, the content is not the game though. The content is what quack tickets are out that week. The content itself is there to funnel players who do not want to do quack ticket to do content to get money to then buy the quack ticket. That is the hamster wheel.
Geared for it to then make the money to then go into the next thing you're doing, right? It's tough, right? It's difficult and it's unfair
And
when
then you
you're
wait
kind
around
of
for the
behind,
next guild that
but
gonna,
it's the reward,
you know, get you up to do
for
the net
trying and
content.
pushing ahead or staying ahead, being able to make that money early, being able to get those items early, being able to, you know, farm up the money to get that fashion early, whatever it happens to be. And I think,
What up?
Don't think people would mind the battle power walls if they had you do side things that were interesting. Whenever had that, I just bought something off the player shop and went not my merry way. Not interesting at all. Not like, hey, while we're waiting, go help Cast Daddy with something. There's some neat gear he's giving as a reward that will help you meet that threshold.
Yeah.
There's side story flavor beyond just standing in place spouting out dialogue.
Yeah, that was like my whole thing as well, of just like so much of NGS is like, don't get me wrong, we had like the side mission NPC. I still say the most interesting was probably Cavalit's. Cause you know, Cavalid did a lot of like foreshadowing and world building for PSO or for NGS, I mean. And then that was like it. None of those side missions are really that interesting or anything of substance. But yeah, the thing is that like all the side mission pretty much just boiled down to like, oh, just a billion and maybe some Maceta and that it, instead of being like equipment or anything. So it like deep down is like you got no real motivation to do the side mission. Because outside Cabal, there's not really any lore to it, there's no exclusive item to it, and it's just faster to go win a battle sector. And then like you get most of your items for doing battle sector in limited time and origin quests anyway. So the NPCs are just kind of there. They just kind of there to just, you know, make it look like the game have more content than it does, because none of it is anything of substance, let alone anything of actually worth doing. Like, even with that being said, I can say the same thing about like Final Fantasy 11. Final Fantasy 11 had the same issue. Absolutely.
Or it could have been like, hey, go do the race thing for good unit. Like anything. Anything to mix it up. Damn.
Yeah, just imagine, like, outside of like my leaderboard idea I have spouted on about forever. Yeah, just imagine if like they had specific equipment tied to specific activities. Like example being like, oh, like weaponkins. Having weaponkin be like boss weapons. And you can only get that weapon by defeating that dread, defeating that origin quest. And then have it set up that weapon is like unique to that boss, and have like AP or PAs that are similar. Or if you want to go the fashion game of it.
Well, imagine introducing the side activities as part of the main story.
Yeah. Instead, they just fail. But also having like how PSO2 had it, where like, oh, you farm like 4 of that weapon, now you can turn it into a camo. You can put on whatever weapon.
That shit feels so, yeah, separate from the game.
Yeah. It literally, the only reason you would do it would be just so you can get blue dots off the, you know, out of the area that, you know, cluttering up your vision. Or once again, to make it look like more content. But yeah, like they could do like that type of stuff. Or example being like, oh, if you go do like the field wasting, then like the item they drop there can like enhance your like skeletal feed or AP recovery, or, you know, have some stat that it tied. Or like having like, I get an example that would be like, you know, like the augment that is like, oh, the augment adds 5% more to your damage output. Have that tied to literally tied to like a daily or some side quest where you fight like an enemy that obviously made to be tough. You know, that actually look and fight like a toughness. Like probably an example of that would be like was the samurai doll that out in the swamp area. Like have that be like, oh, if you fight that dread for like a side mission or something, you can get rewarded like a thing that make your PA hit farther or faster, or like then unlock like a exclusive samurai sword from him. But yeah, there's like a lot of ways that you can make the NPCs and the side missions actually feel relevant. Like I said, my other thing have always been, since it's an oldie but a goodie, because every MMO does it, of having different regions have like different ranks in it. So like the more you kill enemy in a certain area, or more people you help in a certain area, the higher your reputation get. That will unlock exclusive items in like a shop that is tied to that area or the monsters of that area. Like then that motivates you to hang around in certain area to do dailies and weekly and farm enemies in that area to help boost your standing in that area if you want to get like a certain, you know, outfit or a certain weapon or a certain augment. It's just like there's so much that could be done with that. That is not reinventing the wheel at all. That Sega never going to do anything with.
Sounds more interesting than the seasonal shop.
Yeah. Like, for example of this would be, you know, the AC quat where you have like your bathing suit and stuff that look like the starting area outfit. Have it well like after, I don't know, after like what, episode 4. Was it 4? What when we found out about Lucille? Have it like after the people from Lucille came down. Have it at that point where the town where Alio Town was starting to get rebuilt. And then you have Quesadale being like, hey, I need you to go collect like food, like wood, like crafting material. Bring it back, trade it in, you get respect in that area. You help defend off dreads or origin quests or limited time event that appeals in that area. That then be like, oh, you helped us out.
Join me in playing Honkai Star Rail.
Oh my God.
Use code Star Rail gift to receive in-game rewards and reach the goals to support the stream.
Ad. Do that, YouTube. Do that. But yeah, like you do that type of stuff, and that thing you know is like, oh, he'll use some currency for helping us. Now you can go buy them bathing suits from that area, like as example. Like I've been talking about that type of design forever. Like I said, literally at that point, that just beat Tribe from Final Fantasy 14. That is what that is. That is literally reputations from WoW. You know, it's not like this stuff is like insane or new to the drama by any means. But the reason why every MMO ever been doing this going back to the 90s, you know, the reason that design ideal is still around and still used in MMO to this day. And that was some of the stuff I was hoping they were going to do when they were announced it about the game being open. And then, you know, once you leave the city, they would like nothing. So here we are.
Allows a lot of people to just never leave that sedentary lifestyle. I've always said you can't force people to get out of Alio. You can't force someone to want to go after them. To me, it's crazy to not want to get stronger. I don't understand the thought process people have when they log into the game that's based on combat and.
Oh, I can point out the reason the whole not getting stronger is, on one hand, like I said, you got the player bait trained to only care about cosmetics. You got the whales.
They are must-have items locked behind it too. I always do the Snake Beast tribe in Stormblood. For the false nails.
Exactly.
Very good shit.
Exactly. So you know you understand fully what I'm talking about. But yeah, like the reason people don't want to get stronger is because they don't care about getting stronger. They want the fashion. And if all fashion is tied to doing nothing but scratches or buying it out the player shop, without somehow the fashion got decent in the battle pass, which I doubt. Like then you got no reason to do the content if you only care about that. And then on the other side of that coin is you got no reason to become stronger, because if you become stronger, as Krono mentioned, you become faster at farming. But the thing is, if you someone who don't care about farming, you know, money, equipment, fashion, it's like, you know, you see no point. Like, well, I see no point in becoming more stronger, because why would I become stronger when I still can kill everything without any real issue? And any issue I will have, Sega just gonna fix it in like 6 months. or in a couple weeks. So I have no motivation to become powerful that way because I don't care about cosmetics. I don't care about doing content right away, and I don't care about wasting my time to become more powerful when Sega just gonna give me the item to begin with or right afterwards. And so at that point, it's like, in the case of PSO, is like, at that point, I guess I'm going to play something else in the meantime between updates if I were playing it still. Or you get the situation happening where people just become like, you know, the WAP that hang out in Alio and just use as a chat room or do the screenshot stuff for social media or just in general. You get the people that just sit in salon for 8+ hour a day just trying to cosplay random things because that's what ends up being fun for them. And none of the other stuff really matter at the end of the day. And I think, like I said, I think it like that got a lot to do with the way, you know, PSO trained the players. Like I said, I gave up on farming items after the bullshit that was the Nemesis weapon PSO2. You know, it's just what it is. And that's the reason why people don't want to get more powerful. Because the game itself is deep down is not built around becoming more powerful because of the caveat with Sega, with how much they put cosmetics, with how lacking of motivation to actually do content that is more difficult to get certain item or certain cosmetics. And it's just like, I think that's what it is. It's like, at least for me, it's just one of them cases. Like, I look at the stats and the data, and it's just like, yeah, like we were talking about earlier in the stream, it's just like the whole idea of like, why would I be doing that? I'm just gonna wait time. I'm gonna just go do something else and just wait for, you know, Sega to just give the item because they're going to. Because it's like the progression is not fun to begin with to become more powerful.
Fashion, and they want the fashion and not the combat.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, well, if I spend money on my fashion, then I can't, or I spend money on combat, I can't have a fashion. Dude, I spend money on both. Like, I grind out both. I'll sit here for the next 5 hours and grind out money that way I can have an upgrade for both. And it's not like it's difficult.
And for me, like, I just don't care about fashion, so.
Difficult to grind out money. They've made it very easy to grind money. You can grind money extraordinarily easily, but literally in less than an hour, you can grind the upgrade for the best units you have in the game. And yes, I know it is not a vast difference from what they have previously, what they gave us previously, but it takes you 45 minutes. And there are players still complaining about that. And to me, it just reminds me.
Yeah, to be totally honest, when I kind of feel like when players get to that point, I feel like there's about anything in gaming or just whatever hobby you might have, is the whole thing of understanding the why of like, why do you complain? Why do you feel that way? Why do you care? Why don't you care? And I feel like that right there is like getting to the point of like, figuring out of like, you know, do you really need to play this game anymore? Or do you need to take part in whatever activity anymore in your life? And then come to terms
Yeah,
with,
dude. If they dumped 25% of the scratch items in the loot pools, I'd feel a bit more motivation.
Yeah.
Cause even if I font gets stronger, maybe I could find a cape or something from a certain boss.
Yeah. That right there, like either like you want an example of how to get me care about cosmetics. It do what Wayfinder does and what Monster Hunter does. It mainly Wayfinder as a single player game does. Where, you know, you have a list of like, heal like 10, you know, almost sets. Go out and find them. Go out and farm them. And it become like a checklist. And I feel like for me, that would go like a long way to make me care. Because like, any of I'm never going to use the item. If I have a blank spot in like a list of item with just like question marks, you better believe I want to fill that in. So that would get me to like care about cosmetic. Like, I want to use it, just, you know, just a completion at checklist type of thing. And the reason why I always unlock all the armor in Monster Hunter if I can, and don't just instantly go for like the set that I know I want for my build. It's like, no, I will unlock everything because dopamine and, you know, ADD, whatever it might be. But But yeah, like PSO don't really have like any of that right now. Other than I get titles, and even titles are like kind of belly away in a lot of ways.
Me of doing everything that's asked for and it's still not being enough. And at some point you have to realize that maybe they're the problem and not you. That's my thoughts on the matter itself. Now, granted, I'm going to continue to upgrade. I'm going to continue to live the best life and enjoy my time in the game. I'm going to continue to farm, make money, get the fashion, get the gear and all that good stuff.
MH armor unlocking is reasonable. You'll eventually get it.
Yeah, yeah. In one of them cases of like, what case scenario is maybe you have to look up a video or something and be like, okay, can I cut the mortal tail off, or can I break that piece of armor off the mortal that happen to be the items you're missing? But yeah, it's absolutely like reasonable and understanding of like what you need to do for it. Like I said, Monster Hunter was the same as like Wayfinder for me. Like, you understand what you need to do, and you can roughly calculate how long it's gonna take you to do it, and then that become like multiple small carrot on the stick you walking towards. That grows so much to motivate you to do stuff like that.
But I really think for the overall health of the game, at least for my own personal enjoyment, I'd really like it if SEGA stopped listening to those players. Stop listening to people who don't want to play the game. If your thought process is
don't
it's
listen
not
to one
worth
Pacific
it,
outset
and you quite literally haven't done anything,
info,
then do you even want to log in? What is it going to take for it to be worth it? Is the game going to have to one-shot you?
To be honest, I think honestly, the people that like, once again, I go back to my wine thing of like real line, like maybe I just don't like that and I just don't want to take part and go find another hobby, go play another game, whatever.
Plus the fights are fun. And then you got the whole set. You could be getting sick of the monster, but you're moving on to the next one. Fun restored.
Yeah, that is a very good point as well. It like, I get that a better way to put it. It like, when you are farming in Monster Hunter or a certain armor or whatever, it does a very good job for the most part. Don't get me wrong, always exceptions, but very much do a pretty good job of by the time you're sick of that fight, you're already ready to move on to the next one, and the game will allow you to move on. Any of you all trying to be a completionist and get everything, you know, understanding how long it need to take to keep that dopamine going for your player, and NGS just don't have that. Like, it just don't. But yeah, I kind of feel like overall on the NGS thing, of just like, you know, or like whenever Joe come in, he'll be like, oh, that game sucked, and like, why are you any playing it? Why are you any watching it? Why are you any caring about it at all if it sucks so bad? And I kind of feel like that with the NGS player base is like the ones that complain the most are probably the people that like, you might need to just stop playing the game, you know, or come to terms with why you play it. And if it just like straight up a hate play, it just like, man, there's so much better thing you can be doing with your time than hate playing or watching or, you know, insult, whatever it might be. And I feel like the problem with not even PSO, just a lot of live service stuff is like the trap that come from financially and time have such a stranglehold on so many people. And I feel like so many people, especially in like the MMO live server gaming camp, would be so much better off to be set well enough to be like, okay, it's time to go. I'm done. I'm ready to move on. Instead of just trying to beat the dead horse of trying to.
And then you'll get a later set. And it'll need lucky a gem from an earlier monster as well as an elder dragon. And you can feel the gear gap. It feels good to beat the shit out of the Apex monster from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, that is the other thing. That's the other thing that NGS never had done for me. Is that whole progression of strength. Because, you know, one thing whenever, like, you playing through a game, and, like, for example, that you see this in, like, farm games as well. Of, like, you would, like, example, when you thought, like, Dark Souls or some shit. You know, everything is almost killing you, everything is difficult. But like as you go, the game slowly get harder, but you get better. Might it be through level, might it be through skill, whichever. And it like a very nice climb up, and the whole time at the player you'll be like, man, this game is hard, but man, it's satisfying when I win. And then you literally go back to the starting zone, you just walk up and you look at a monster and they just die. And you instantly feel that progression that you gained. And like that is very satisfying, especially if you can walk that line the right way. And once again, like NGS with like the carry and whatnot, never really have that feeling. Like I never feel like I'm gaining strength at all, no matter what my stats try to tell me. Like, to be totally honest, it's like the like 6,000 hours we played NGS and PSO2, I never felt that power gain at all. Like beyond just having the stats and the checklist upset stats. And I think that also kind of hurt a little bit of not actually feeling like you're getting stronger.
It's refreshing to go back to the monster you were sick of because they give you time away from them. They never give you time away from the fucking lion, manta ray, giant with sword, giant with guitar club, etc.
Yep. Yeah, that whole thing, like, yeah, in NGS is like, yeah, because like so many enemies are just like weaken or like, oh, heal the enemy, but now you have a spike on his head. Like 100%. And like outside of like what the dreads and the origin classes, like there was not really any like uniqueness to the monsters. You know, not like they're getting a whole new move sets or anything, and especially how flashy NGX combat is. You know, you're not gonna notice that one extra horn on the enemy that making them totally distant. But yeah, 100%. Like that is like one of them things that been, you know, at older time of game design. Of like, the more you repeat the same enemies, any if they are recording, the faster the game become more frustrating, more tedious. And how you fix that at either you make all new enemies, which I know not every game company can do, because money and money on this, or you go the other route, but once again, tie back to money deal would be actually changing the move set to actually make it feel like a decent fight.
Yeah, I don't agree with this video. Even though I've written off the game. Look at more successful games for examples. They are doing what we are asking for.
Yeah. Yeah, improve to what? Yeah. Because I think honestly, like the best games that do this is, like I said, the one that take input from everywhere and not just a certain minority. Or, you know, also not being like, we know best. You know, NGS also kind of, back in the day, kind of fell in that camp of like, fuck you, player, we know what we doing. When it like, they have no idea. And like, you know, being able to have your ideals and have the ideal of the player base and have the ideal of your competitor and being able to find what make each of them basic great and to adapt into something better is a skill set on their own. And I really don't think like NGS have that. Like at all. So but yeah, like that my biggest thing about just NGS as a whole is just like the dragging the feet and being very bad almost right out of the gate with your player base after training them.
Do they have to make you not allowed to go into like, if you're not allowed to go into content, is it going to be worth it for you to get into the content? Like, what is it going to require? I'm curious personally.
The items are not
What
going
do
to be
you guys think of the console? And again, I know everyone's going to agree with me. Probably going to get flamed in this video, to be perfectly honest, and it's totally fine. I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on the matter itself and be upfront and honest with you guys. I think it is a problem. I think it's a problem that's existed for a very, very long time. I think if we don't get away from it, things are going to continue down this path. And yeah, I could show examples, but last time I showed people making comments in a video, everyone got real butthurt and bent out of shape, even though it was from a completely public forum. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to shame people online like that. It's not something that needs to happen. Feel free to disagree with me or maybe think that
yeah,
it's not something that's happening. Just look around, look in my comment section, look in Discords, look in Twitter, look in the official Discord. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, all these places are cesspools, log into the game and listen to people talk about it on actual blogs. Listen to your own alliances. It's everywhere. And honestly, I hope they shift in a way, like when I've said in the past that BP needs to be rebalanced, it's not in a way that makes it easier for people. I'm not out here telling you guys that, hey, you shouldn't be able to do any content because you haven't geared up. I'm just saying that you should have to try. That's all I got, man. Like if you enjoyed, dislike if you didn't, I guess. Sub you want to keep up with more. As always, thanks to channel members. You guys are fantastic. And I appreciate every single.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the discussion here is. I feel like once again, there's one of them discussion. It's like I see where Krono is coming from. But at the same time, I feel like there was certain points in this, in the whole thing of like not thinking about it from someone else's point of view. And just thinking about it from more of just like looking out at the community and be like, why you like this? And trying to at the community why they like it without thinking about, you know, like thinking about like the community and Sega and seeing how we got here and being able to see like why do people think the way they are or the way they feel about the game. I feel like that will the disconnect happening, at least for me and Kronos anyway. It like I had a better way to put it, like the distance between devil advocate and being able to simplify with the consumer base appealed to just acting why, you know. Yeah, assuming that we acting pulled up, we not never satisfy it. Yeah. But it more like that for me, it more along the lines of like, how did we get here? And you know, what is like Sega design and choices that got players thinking the way they are? Because no, at the end of the day, I know everybody want to think they have free will. They want to think they have their own personal opinions. But at the end of the day, everything in life come from your interactions, and might it be what happened to you, what happened around you, what type of people you are around. You know, nothing is truly your own personal thoughts. Everything is influenced by other things outside of your own head. And I kind of feel like that what Krono is kind of missing is like the ideal of like, how did these people get here and why are they here and why they have the opinions? And like, and how much of it is like Sega training, how much it is the player bait being, you know, at that point bored down to a very specific, you know, salon, you know, city WAP, whatever you want to call them. And then like also having the content being like all over the place in tone and difficultness, and then like Sega, instead of making progression 100% through gameplay, they have like the events in the seasonal shop where they just give you the stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, you might have won like a 2-minute quest to get it, but it's still like, you know, no skin off your back. It pretty much one step removed from just getting in your mailbox in the game. And like all that stuff all come back down to how you treat your players and how you built your game out. And like that is the main reason so much of this stuff is happening. And like they go for anything in life. It doesn't matter what it is. But yeah, like I think even for me with the whole like hit statement, like I don't understand why you don't want to get stronger. Like, you know, why should I care about killing something 2 seconds faster for a drop weight that is like whorish in so many ways?
I don't believe they care. I've written that idea off when I saw the survey asking about scratches instead. Again, we know where their focus is.
Oh, absolutely.
You should make a game that's fun. So fun, I'm begging to spend money on it. Not scratches first.
Mm-hmm.
Cool designs. Expensive crossovers. Smoke and mirrors. To distract us from the weak content and features on offer. Fuck that.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, the salon stuff, the flat ticket stuff, the crossover stuff, it like, it was still like a large majority of the player base that is just like, this is fun. This is all they want. They, you know, like the same argument you can give for like the people who just spend like 10 hours in like Dragon Dogma Kelter Cradle or, you know, or soon to be Monster Hunter Kelter Cradle, or the people that will do the same thing in like the Sims or whatever, you know, like for example of this is like, look at Pip, look at like Sim, you know, the people that enjoy that stuff. And there are people that like, that is literally the only thing they enjoy from Phantasy Star. And I think that is also the whole thing. Is like that the player base that you've been trained or been invited into the game by SEGA by, you know, seeing that stuff. Or like also the other side of that is also the people who just all they do is screenshots and post on Twitter about it. You know, dislike for disinfolk type of deal. But like once again, I think it all come back down to the way things overlap, bleed into each other, and progress with each other. It's so drastically cut into its own thing that you don't see any overlap. And like the whole topic of that being, you know, the people complaining about it too hard to get up, any of it super easy. Like I think that example of it, it's just like them people, them version of easy is sliding a credit card. The second you ask them to leave the town and go do like a limited time event, like 5 times to get an item, that way more work than just sliding your credit card or hitting like 2 buttons in a shop. So for them, it's like spending like 20, 30 minutes in a limited time event is so much goddamn work that could have been, you know, like 1 to 2 button press and they have it. And that's the reason they find that stuff difficult. No matter how much, from a gameplay aspect, you know how easy it is. You know, and like, and I think that's the main thing about the PSO community. Like 100%, like the main thing about it. Like you see
yeah,
that
but you could earn more money. That's the problem.
But
they
the
are
thing
okay
is,
with just good enough.
also,
Just this cosmetic only crowd. That's so sad. Being okay with being a mediocre game. The shit. That's like if 14, the OG one, it had patches before A Realm Reborn. It's like if it fixed it until it was good enough to be barely profitable, and just leaving it at that.
well,
Come on,
do that.
I can't be the only one who thinks that way of thinking is whack.
But also the other thing to keep in mind, not so much the 14 thing, but for NGS, it like this argument as well, like what we were talking about of the whole like, oh, you can go farm millions of dollars super fast. The thing is, you know what also fast? Is you buy premium. So you push a button for premium. You then push button for quack tickets. Get the item you want. If there are items you want. And then you sell the rest of the item to the player shop. And then you make money without leaving the town. And will be, in some cases, depending on the item, you know, if it's like a hell piece or something that's more desirable, it's like you spend $2 and now you got an item worth like $80 to $100 million on a setup. You shove it on the market, it sell in a few minutes. And then you look at it and be like, I just made $80 million off a $2 quack ticket in 5 minutes. And to make $80 million is like 30 hours in a battle sector. You know, it's just like they would take the quack ticket any day of the week. Which it, like I said, for me, in one of them cases, it's like, I wish you couldn't sell quack items, and I wish quack items was once they are gone, when the quack ticket gone, they come loot table. And then that variant you could sell. Because at that, by tying it to quack ticket, like, you just motivating people to spend real money to get in-game money. And then with the in-game money, they will buy more fashion they want, or they might just buy out all the equipment, get best in slot from, you know, spending, you know, 10, 30, 40, $50. And then that thing, they know they got best in slot and they good to go. And then they don't really bother doing the content anyway, outside of, you know, whenever they feel obligated to for whatever reason. So that, like, a whole nother side of it as well. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like Krono is kind of missing that point a little bit. Just because it's like, obviously, Krono in the camp are like, oh, I'm just going to farm my money. Which, yeah, you can. But you can also spend 5 minutes and hope you get a hell piece that you can then put on the player market. And just like, that is, like I said, the whole, like, way that work and kind of like contradicting.
Well, I meant SEGA earning money. They are okay with just marketing the game to the niche crowd. And are abandoning the gameplay first people.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, I see what you mean. I thought you were talking about the player bait, but yeah. I feel like, yeah, SEGA, honestly,
niche dress up crowd.
Yeah, which is, you know, obviously big enough to keep the game afloat. But, you know, if, you know, 2023 financials didn't say anything, with PSO being a second money-making game behind Miku, or the Miku mobile game. So, like, yeah, like any from a business app, that, like, if you got the second biggest game in your company, and you just putting out quack tickets and then doing bare bones stuff for the gameplay people, and you still number 2 behind goddamn Miku mobile game, yeah, you got no real motivation to do anything more than that.
Yeah,
like, absolutely.
Just afloat, like some weekend at Bernie's shit.
Yeah. You know, like that, the same thing of, like, you know, the weekend MMO company that literally just buy up old MMOs and then just flood it with microtransaction. And then, like, let, you know, a couple thousand people make them 2 to 3 million every, you know, month or so. And that kind of what NGS have become. It's like NGS, like NGS at that point is nothing more than the barebone, like, cosmetic dress up game with a little bit of gameplay to keep enough people around for the market to stay valuable for the people who are buying flat ticket. And it just like that what it is at that point. And like I have stated, like, yeah, it, like, the game not bad till you hit a certain point, but once you hit the point you start realizing that is when I feel like PSO start falling apart. But, you know, there was good stuff up to that point. Like, Elite 2, you can look behind the curtain up to that point, PSO is good. It just, once you hit that point and you see what on the other side, everything falls apart. And, like, I don't think SEGA really care at that point. Like, they're making enough money that they want.
Where the hell is their pride in craftsmanship? You got indie devs with more pride in their work. Fuck, man. I'm getting pissed with their lack of caring about their reputation.
I think honestly, will that evolving into is, like, not only, like, yes, like, if you want the pride stuff, the indie stuff, the way to go. I feel like, honestly, the pride stuff is broken up into a few parts of SEGA. You got Atlas, you know, with them, with, like, Metaphor and Persona. You got them. You got the part of SEGA that handle the Yakuza stuff. Like, they are, like, very much prideful on them stuff. And then we got whatever might come from, you know, the Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, you know, the going back to basic side of SEGA. Which we will see if how much pride is there, or how much of that cash in. We will find out eventually. But yeah, I kind of the way you're going. Yeah, the Sonic that have been hitting lately too. That too. Like, I feel like there was a lot of, like, we like examining like the Sonic stuff and finding like love there as well, and not just because of like, you know, selling t-shirts or toys or whatever. Cause like, yeah, generation, well, the new generation supposed to be great. Sonic Frontier is easily my second favorite Sonic game. It was great. Any of it did feel like somebody was just putting Lego pieces everywhere in like a park, but they were good. Like the movies are great. The toy lines are like fairly decent. Anytime I see like Sonic toy, they all look fairly good and decent for the most part. You know, when I see them in person. So like, you know, you also had like the Sonic animation stuff that, you know, was like, you know, batting 1,000. What was it? I think it was Sonic Boom, right? With the anime or the CG cartoon that seemed to be everything everyone ever wanted. Added like lean a little more adult and a little more edgier, but still like, you know, still on par with what people wanted. And like, yeah, it seemed like that what it is. I feel like all the love and care is, which in Return, which could be the fat heel, Miku, the Miku mobile game, and PSO only exists as a money funneling to fund other stuff at Sega that the devs at Sega actually care about. Cause it's like you like I talked about that before, where like if you look at like the Sonic team, you look at the Yakuza team, and like they are like so much like passionately inclined. You know, you got fucking Yakuza over here putting random Twitch streamers inside Yakuza. We got the Sonic community over here being like, oh, here are your consoles, here are like meetups, here are like big events, here are like, you know, sending out people to play your games, like selling all the merch. It's just like, you can drastically see well each part of Sega landing. And then you look at like PSO and just like I said, like for the US, it's like we the redhead step trial that they barely throwing bones at to us. Of like any now, like what, 4 years later, they finally selling merch. And it literally looked one step below like a 4-time audit.
Isn't
on
it weird though? If the other IPs were more mid, and the Phantasy Star team was knocking it out of the park, they'd be better off financially, no? If you traded one success for another.
That's the problem. It's like, personally, I think it won't be. Because I feel like if you want to make it more successful, you having to spend more money. And if you're spending more money to make it more successful, you start pulling in player base that is like less willing to spend more money. Like they will spend money, but they're not spending the same amount of money as the people that is, you know, the people who would like feel trapped. And they, you know, the people that are spending like thousands of dollars, you know, every week, 2 months. Because I get the best way to put it is the more successful you make your game from a design aspect, mean more people you have, and more people you have mean more overhead to keep the game going. And you constantly having to keep them people invested in your game. And that takes money, effort, and time. Well, on the other hand, if you have a consistent player base that is willing to be okay with what you're doing, but still funding you to the point of be the second biggest game in your whole company, what motivation do you have to become better? You know? It's literally my whole thing about PSO when it comes to like me becoming more powerful. Why do I want to become more powerful when I can kill everything in 2 seconds? Why would Sega want to make the game better when you making, you know, the second biggest game series in Sega? You know, you're already winning. Why do you need to try more? Why rock the boat? And I think that is what it is. And that is like, I think the reason why you're seeing that money funnel into other parts of Sega. And the reason why other parts of Sega are doing so good right now. Because they have that money thanks to PSO. And if PSO get to a point where they have to start ramping it up and start like actually making it good, especially if they had like a huge player base they have to keep happy for decades. And, like, that thought going downhill, you know, the rest of your product just fucked. So I think at that point Sega just like have the ideal and working out for them, and they're just not gonna walk the boat. And I think that is honestly the reason why PSO is in the state it is. And honestly, it like they beg the question then, and like what would have happened if PSO wasn't successful? Well, literally, it'd probably be dead by now in Japan and in America. But yeah, because like let's be honest, like if it wasn't PSO, it'd probably be what Sonic probably be number 2, mainly because of all the merch. But yeah.
Because you could earn even more money. Like Helldivers or some shit. Like to improve your reputation. There's a value on that. Thanks to their nonchalant view on me as a player. I'm more skeptical of any MMO shit they plan in the future.
I think that get into the whole thing of like I think whenever you hitting a certain amount of money, because the one thing I have said that is like bad and refreshing at the same time. You know how like American company need all the money and they're not getting all the money, they very upset. They need it all. Well, the one thing I've noted about Japanese studios, like don't get me wrong, they want all the money, but they only want all the money from Japan. You know? And I think that is what it is. And also a lot of Japanese company, except for Quillian outlier here, fall into that camp of like, if they make an X amount, they are completely happy making that amount and not really worrying about getting more because they will subsidize it with something else. In the case of Sega being Yakuza and Sonic. And I think that's what it is for Sega. It's like they got the money they need to fund everything, with it being the second biggest game. And they just like happy enough with that, and then every other property is just making up anything they might be missing out on by not having, you know, the player base or the consumer base being inclined into PSO. Like hell, for example, the whole video literally about like the people who do outfit hating having to play the game for more than like a second. So like I think Sega feels the same way about that. Of just like we got the money. I what? What we got?
Yeah.
Bot? There you go, bot. But yeah, I think that's what it is like they're just content with what they have and they're doing what need to be done for them in the overall scheme of things. So yeah, that kind of just how I feel about it. Like I could be off base, I will admit freely if I am, but I think you're thinking about it from like a Japanese company point of view that is mainly funded, well, by Japan. So yeah. The sad state of all this, I guess.